Hi everyone, my name is Anthony Jung and I'm the Executive Chef of Retail Dining here at the University of Massachusetts. And today I'm going to show you how to make authentic Korean kimchi. Alright, so let's take a look at some of the ingredients we'll be utilizing for this recipe. I've got some Korean chili flakes. Now these are the coarse variety compared to the fine variety. We've got some sugar here. We've got some water. We've got some beautiful carrots from the student farm up in South Deerfield. We've got a beautiful apple here that's from Cold Spring Orchards. We have an Asian pear, some fish sauce, 5 cloves of garlic, a good piece of ginger here. We've got some scallions here, and we've got some beautiful Napa cabbage, which was actually grown at the permaculture garden just outside of Franklin Dining Commons. And we have some kosher salt, and this will be the main agent that we're going to utilize to cure the cabbage here. All right, so let's start on the scallions here, and I'm just going to cut them into segments. And we're looking for about, almost 2 inches or so. Okay, we're just gonna trim off the ends here. Okay, and that's gonna go into our bowl. All right, so let's start on our prep work here. So let's start with our beautiful carrots here, and I'm just gonna give these guys a peel. You can see that the skin just comes off really nicely. And you know what, honestly, I'll probably just use 2 of these carrots here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna give them a little grate. You can see how this little mandolin makes quick work of shredding these. All right. Okay. And let's add it to our bowl here. Give it just a little chop real quick. Oopsie. Okay. Oops. There we go. Okay. To our bowl. Alright, so let's start on our ginger here. Skin just a little bit. All right. And you definitely want a sharp knife whenever you're cutting ginger. Just really helps. Okay, so we've got the skin off. There we go. We'll just move these guys off to the side here. And what I'm going to do is use that grater. You'll notice that you get these little bits of hair from the fiber of the ginger, and that's all right. All right, let's try to get a little bit more of this. And ginger just has this really great fragrance to it, so it really perfumes sauces or soups, or in this case kimchi, really well. It's one of my favorite aromatics. Just has a great smell and flavor. It really pairs well with things that are spicy or sweet. All right. go, we'll get all of that ginger. All right, I'm just gonna put it into our bowl here. All right, so let's start with our apple, I should say. And I'm just going to cut this in half. It's only about half of it. And I'm gonna give it a quick little peel. So I use my knife here. And obviously you can use a peeler if you want. Okay, so there we go. I peel here, and again, with the Asian pear here. Just gonna cut it in half. And just give it a peel with my knife here. And again, it's really important to have a sharp knife whenever you're cooking, actually. They tend to be a lot safer than a dull knife. Dull knives tend to slip, and that's when you actually cut yourself. So, okay, there we go. We'll get rid of the peel. And then again, we're just gonna put through this grater. And funny story about this thing. This thing is probably from the early 80s. And my mom has made countless jars of kimchi with this guy here. So it's just a kind of relic from the past for me. Maybe an heirloom piece of equipment. So, all right, so let's get the apple through here. We'll just give it a fine little grate here. Okay, you just want to be very careful right at the very end, because that's when people tend to cut themselves on mandolins or graters. Oops, there we go. Keep going on this. And these Asian pears tend to be very juicy, slightly starchy compared to American apples, but or pears. But you can see kind of see all that juice coming out of here. Okay, so let's just get this onto the side. And let's just add our apple and pear to our bowl. Finish our aromatic paste for our kimchi. And so next step is we're gonna add our sugar, our Korean pepper flakes here. Add the water and our fish sauce. We're going to let this sit for about 10 minutes or so, just so all the flavors can combine, and then I'll show you the next step. Basically, all I did was just give it a little stir to combine everything. And one of the things I did was I just gave it a nice little wipe on the rim here. And this is just a little technique from my mom, where she was always very adamant that we had clean rims. And the reason is this paste tends to stick to everything and stain your clothes and things like that. So it's just a quick little tip here, so you can be a little bit cleaner, so you don't stain your clothes while you're making this. All right, so then got our cutting board here, and we've got our beautiful Napa cabbage. Like I said, was from the permaculture garden. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut this lengthwise in half and then into quarters as well. And then we're going to salt this cabbage heavily to cure it and remove some of the moisture. All right, so pretty big heads. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut that base just a little bit. Okay, put that off to the side. And I'm just gonna cut it right down in half. And you can see it's a beautiful cabbage. It's really important to have a really big bowl when you start. And after it steeps in the salt here, it's gonna pull out some of that moisture, and it's gonna wilt slightly, so it's not gonna be as big as what we have right here. Probably go down about half in size. Almost kind of like when you're sauteing spinach. how it really wilts down. So what I've done is I've actually put the cabbage in the sink here, and this is where I'm going to season it, actually cure it with the kosher salt here, and then I'm just going to place it in this bowl. All right, so I'm going to give it just a quick little rinse. I've rinsed it previously, but I just want to make sure that, just give it one last rinse here. Out, okay, and I'm just going to add our salt to our cabbage here. And what you want to make sure that the salt gets in between the really each and every leaf, okay. And even though it seems like a lot of salt, most of this is going to rinse out after we cure it. So what happens is this salt removes the moisture and preserves it. Korea has very long and cold winters, so they use this method to preserve their cabbage, kind of like very similar to pickles or corned beef in the United States. Of course, with the Korean paste that we just made, that this is going to have a tremendous amount of flavor between the aromatics, the ginger, the garlic, the apples, obviously the... All right, ooh, there's a little friend in there. And take all these guys as well. We've got our salted cabbage here. Looks really great. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this cure for about 4 hours or so. So I know it takes a little bit of time, but this is something that you could definitely do in the morning. And then, or you could do it overnight as well. So what's going to happen is the moisture is going to start to really come out of the cabbage. And what I'm going to do is from time to time, just take the top of the cabbage and put it to the bottom and bottom to the top. And what this does is to make sure that we have an even curing as that moisture comes out. We want to make sure that that we're rotating the cabbage. All right, so it's been a little bit more than 4 hours here. You can see how much our cabbage is actually wilted down here. Okay, you can see the moisture that's there at the bottom. What I've done is, again, like I said, you take the top to the bottom, bottom to the top, and what you really want to do is just make sure you're really pushing down the cabbage so it's really sitting in its own juice. And actually, when we jar this, that's also very important because you want to limit the amount of oxygen. What we're going to do now is we're going to rinse the cabbage here because we want to remove that excess salt. So the salt has done its job. What you're going to notice is that the cabbage is going to be fairly translucent now. Okay, and we want to make sure that we're removing that salt. Because obviously excess salt can cause a lot of problems, mainly high blood pressure. So we're going to rinse that off. What we really want to do is we really want to squeeze out the moisture. All right. We're going to taste this after we rinse this, just to make sure that we've got pretty much all of that salt out. If it tastes too salty, then what you want to do is rinse it again and then squeeze to remove that extra moisture. And I really do have to thank Dan, who takes care of our gardens at our permaculture gardens on campus for growing this. He asked me last year what I might like to see grown, and I told him like it'd be really great to grow some cabbage and then feature it in a video on how to make kimchi. And sure enough, here we are doing it. So Dan, thank you for this great produce, and trying to make the most of your produce here. So we got one last one here, and I think I forgot to mention that I did wash the sink out before I salted the cabbage, rinse the cabbage here. It is very important to make sure that all your equipment is very clean as we'll be preserving this. Those guys to rinse. Nice little squeeze. All right, so let's get started on the very last step here, and that's to add our chili paste to our cabbage here that's been salted and rinsed and ready for the jar here. So just a quick little tip, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the paste. Oh, I forgot to mention that I'm wearing gloves because the chili can be fairly spicy and can actually penetrate into your skin a little bit. And I've got an apron on because like I mentioned earlier, that this step can be actually really messy. So what we want to do is just grab this really great flavorful paste here, and what we want to do is get it in between each and every leaf here, okay, and especially up at the root end here, okay. And if you notice that I've left the cabbage into these quarters. Now a lot of times you'll see kimchi chopped up into small little squares and what have you, but generally traditional homemade kimchi will always have the root end. So then you know you're getting a really high quality homemade one. Then what you want to do is just wrap it kind of around itself. Almost kind of looks like a lumpy. However, so we're limiting the amount of air on the leaves here, and then we're just going to put it in our jar that I have here. Now, a lot of times my mom would repurpose jars, so whether if there were pickles in it or what have you, then wash them out and reuse them for her kimchi. So it's a great way to repurpose glass jars. All right. Okay. See how great that looks. All right. Put that right in the bottom, and I'm going to really push down to really try to limit the amount of oxygen that's in that jar. Next one here. Really get in between each and every one of those leaves there. we really here. I'm going to try to figure out if I can get all of this into that one jar. Hopefully I can. If not, then I'll have to put these guys in another container. Okay. Let's see if we can get that in there. Okay. All right, so I'm going to have to put the rest in one last container. However, what I want to do is I want to cap this kimchi with just those little tidbits that we have floating around, just the loose ends here. And again, is to make sure that your jar is completely full so you can limit the oxygen in here. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up, and then I'm going to show you the very last step here. All right, so I put the remainder of kimchi in this jar, and one of the things that you can do is use this as a starter for the next time you're making kimchi as well. So there's just one last step that I got to make sure that I get to, because my mom wouldn't have it any other way. You really have to make sure everything's nice and clean and wiped down. Okay. And then what you can do is put this in the refrigerator. I mean, it's ready to eat now if you want. My personal favorite time is about 2 to 3 weeks after jarring. That's where the microbes and bacteria really start to get going. And then, you know, it can last for years, actually. We've got some in the refrigerator from a couple years ago. But the flavor changes and it just ends up being more complex. A lot of times when it's that old, you actually want to use it as an ingredient for cooking. So whether you're making soups or what have you. So let's take a look on our kimchi here. All right, so hopefully you found this video educational and that you'll try kimchi at home.